Geoff Neal, this was the underdog play on the week, but the way that he got it done, it's just almost like the victory was almost handed to him. You know what I mean? Vicente Luque, even though he fought admirably, even though in that second round he was starting to bring back some momentum, I think that Geoff Neal did something that was real savvy, bro. And he beat Vicente Luque on ego. And what I mean by that is he knew if this fight was technical, Geoff Neal wins all day. As soon as it turns into a brawl, that's where Luque thrives. Well, how about I keep it standing on the feet to where it's technical the whole time and I won't allow the brawl? How about that? And I think that's more or less what happened. Do you agree?
Oh yeah, man, 100%. It was Geoff Neal fighting his kind of fight
Yeah.
and letting Vicente Luque walk into the danger zone.
Absolutely, and that's kind of the problem is Luque does have that fearless, reckless abandon. I'm going to walk you down and I'm going to do this. Problem is, Luque even said it going into the fight, I love the way Geoff Neal fights because he's going to bring the fight to me. That's not what happened. You brought the fight to him, and then you got pieced up at that left hand a million times. But it did make it a great adjustment during the fight. I do have to give him a little bit of kudos for this. He decided, all right, I'm getting picked apart by this left hand. I'm not moving my head. Clearly, we're not going to adjust that, so I'm just going to keep eating these shots. Well, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start throwing my right hand and that right body kick more and more and more and more to give him something to think about. You can't throw your left hand if it's down here blocking your ribs, right? You can't throw that left hand if it's blocking your head. Okay, maybe that's a good tire up his arms a little bit. Maybe it'll take some sting off of those shots. Well, great in round 2, and then round 3 came along, and right when you thought, okay, this is the round, whoever wins it, like Luque could arguably, if depending on how it goes, he could force a draw in this one. You know, maybe not win, but he could force a draw. And then you get rocked by that left hand again, and it's just too much, man. Then you get hit by like 9 uppercuts, and they call it a day, bro. Geoff Neal, man, on the feet all day long. He even initiated some wrestling, which I thought, Vicente Luque, man, you have more paths to victory to win this fight. However, you stuck to one path and got beat up in that path that happens to be your opponent's best path to victory. So what adjustments would you have made if you were Vicente Luque here?
Ooh, wrestle, man. Get to those hips, get to the ground, avoid uppercut city. You know, that like Michael Bisping said, you eating 8, 9 uppercuts straight to the face, man. It's a rough way to go. You know, it's a hard path to travel, if you will. So that's what I would say, man. Get to the hips, and that's what I was shouting the whole time while I was watching this fight, man. Every time he was getting rocked, you'd see him try and think he'd fighting that ego again, just like you said, Derek. He'd get rocked and come back, trying to get one back on him, throwing hands, instead of thinking something, you know, get to the ground, throw a kick, get to the ground, see what's going on in a different style of the fight. Because I feel like Vicente Luque was the better, more well-rounded fighter. But, you know, that's not always the case, man. If you decide to knuckle up with a dude who's got hands of steel, it's interesting call for Vicente Luque, man, in the corner. Like you said, I think it was a big ego fight on this one, where the ego got a little bit, a little big for Vicente Luque, and he decided, nah, man, this is how his fight's going down. I'm gonna knock this dude out. And Geoff Neal's a dog in there. So what would you say is a better, if not the ground game, what else could Vicente Luque done?
I think Vicente Luque, if he just did what he did in the beginning of the fight, if you noticed in the very beginning of the fight, he owned the center of the cage, and when Neal was drawing him into him, again, back against the cage, he would just back out, and he would reestablish position. That worked in the beginning of the fight, and then you started just following him and trying to walk him down, and that's when Neal had all of his success. But let's flip it a little bit, because this isn't about Vicente Luque. This is about the huge comeuppance of Geoff Neal, man. Some would say that this was arguably the best performance of his career. And I think while that's a little... I mean, it's pretty apt, right? It's not like it's a terrible thing to say. It's a good thing to say about him, man. I just wonder if this was stylistically just the good matchup for him. Because if you remember correctly, if you look at Geoff Neal, a couple of his last fights, man, it just hasn't gone too well. You got that split decision against Santiago Ponzinibbio, right? But those 2 losses to Neil Magny and to Wonderboy Thompson, those were not good losses right there. Those were not good losses. Those were bad losses right there. So a lot of people were wondering, oh, this was this hands of steel guy. What happened? Geoff Neal's supposed to be the next guy. And then, you know, the fall off happened. So I think that this was a great return back to form. But if you look at the numbers, 121 significant strikes landed by Geoff Neal is the most that he's landed in his entire UFC career. So Vicente Luque definitely gave him the opening. Vicente Luque definitely stylistically was the right opponent for Geoff Neal right here. And I just think that if Geoff Neal gets another opponent like this, it's going to be a good spot. But look at this. This is what I was asking you in the preview show. Number 6 versus number 13. Luque had no reason to fight down. And now you just got leapfrogged. So this is what happens right here. Let me ask you for Luque, man. Luque is on a little bit of a rough run himself, man. These are what, back-to-back losses to Bilal Muhammad and now to Geoff Neals after beating the likes of Michael Chiesa, Tyron Woodley, Randy Brown, Deco Price, Mike Perry, right? Brian Barberena, Jalen Turner, right? Where does Vicente Luque go from here? Because you have to imagine he has to fight for his position in that top 10 again. So what do you think is next for him?
Ooh, yeah, man. I think he's got to fight another. Risk it again. If you're willing to risk it now, when you're going 6 to number 13, you got to risk it again, because it was not too long ago we were talking that Vicente Luque was the next, going to be the next up and comer, or not the next up and comer, the next contender for the belt. You know, he had title aspirations well within grasp, and then you drop one to Bilal Muhammad. You drop this one to Geoff Neals. It's going to be rough going for Vicente Luque to really get one back. And I almost think he needs to fight another really precise striker. You know, somebody who's gonna have or somebody who's gonna let Vicente Luque have a showing that shows the crowd that he's growing. You know what I'm saying? That he's becoming a better fighter. He's learned from the losses, and it has to be somebody that's on a tear. Somebody that's coming up in the division with a lot of heat behind him, and almost one of these old dog versus young dog, but the old dog wins this time. I think that's going to be the only way to really have Vicente Luque kind of get back into that steam. Because if you think about it, you know, you're looking at the 170-pound class, the welterweight class. I don't see him fighting up at the top again, you know, like the Leon Edwards, the Kamaru Usmans. You know, like, I feel like those aren't well within grasp right now. And honestly, I'm trying to think. I was racking my brain right now to try and think, like, who is the up-and-comer of the 170-pound division that we can see him actually get one back on. It's a hard test, or it's a hard draw. What do you think?
Well, looking at the rankings right now, man, I think a good fight could be, I mean, it's tough in the top 15, but what about Michel Paeta? You know what I mean? This is going backwards a little bit, but this is still establishing, all right, you got to do what you got to do to earn your spot. Michel Paeta, the Leech, right? We could talk about a rematch with Michael Chiesa. We could talk about a Neil Magny fight. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of plays that can be made here and a lot of ways to go, man. So I don't think that we should discount it too heavily yet, right? But it's something to take into consideration. So I will just, leave that for, what it's worth, I guess I should say. And with that being said, man, this was just a huge win by Geoff Neals, cashed in on that plus 375 TKO. I was so close to hitting on that plus 350 decision, man. I was like, that was my hedge. I was like, if Geoff Neals wins, he wins by decision, because nobody knocks out. Oh yeah, let's not fail to mention, Geoff Neals becomes the first man to knock out Vicente Luque. Oh, who would have thought? You know what I'm saying? So, huge win right there.